put myself in your hands.
Yes, please do.
So I'm going to now send a text message. I actually do this less often because I use Siri quite a bit.
Okay, stop right there.
Okay.
There's a mirror over there. So can you see your posture, how your head's forward?
Oh, I definitely know what I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely feel it. I'm also closing slightly here.
Yeah, you're
And
actually
it's like,
reducing your lung capacity,
okay.
among other things. But this has given people terrible neck problems, so the key, and you can do this because you've got good posture, hold your phone right in front of you,
Okay.
okay? And then, do you have dictation? Press that little mic and talk.
Oh, well, if that's the case, I can just...
But don't use your thumb. Don't use your thumb. Use your other hand. If you're going to hold your phone with one hand,
Okay.
do not use your thumb. This is the most, I
Is
don't
it
even want to do it.
overused?
It's so dangerous. This is a natural movement of the thumb,
Okay.
the power grip.
Okay.
This, what we do with the space bar,
Okay.
will destroy your thumb joint over time and also can give you deeper veins disease and
Okay.
terrible inflammation.
So-
You'll get pain right here and it can be very bad.
I'm using the power of the pointer.
Tall, yes. Yes. And you can hold it if you actually, it's very comfortable if you just kind of leave your elbow close to you
Okay.
and bend it.
Okay.
And then it's about at the right angle.
Okay.
And then just talk,
I see.
dictate.
So basically using the dictation.
Yeah. The only thing you have to be really careful of is to proofread.
Well, I actually wear a headset. And
Oh, that's good. I like that.
because I do not like any of this, so the phone will generally be in my pocket.
Uh-huh.
And I would just press, but I will now try to be more conscious of, because there's a little thing.
Do you have a mic?
Yeah.
Use the mic.
There's a little thing right here.
Yeah.
And so all I do is plunk, and then, hey, send text message to XYZ.
Yeah, I like that. 'cause
Clink.
Yeah. As long as you're not disturbing your...
No, I'm in motion. I'm doing
Yeah.
whatever it is I'm doing. And in the house, the same thing. I generally have my devices all over the place because I don't like this experience near my face.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of that. But
Yeah.
I do see the folks. That's why I wanted to do it for you so you could show
Yes,
people because
yeah.
I'm not this kind of person generally. This is not me. And it also scares me too because I feel too myopic.
no. Yes.
I don't feel like I
I
can.
just saw a study about the effect on cell phones on the eyes, and it was something about detached retinas. I'm going to have to email you on it. But you can get dry eye if the monitor is too high and you're looking up. You never want that. So,
So we were talking about the process of getting better, and we were talking about why people don't get stronger when they're doing certain activities. First of all, strength training is an interesting thing in and of itself. Separating strength from endurance is necessary to understand what strength is and what endurance is. Muscular endurance is the ability to continuously go, right? You go over and over and over and over and over again. In the case of running, swimming, anything really where you have to do something for a long period of time and be able to do that. Strength is defined more accurately as what you can do in terms of, some people measure it in 1 rep maximum. In other words, what you can push in 1 repetition. That's one way of doing it. I think more practically in terms of there's a quantitative change in how you're able to affect your environment. How much pressure you're able to exert on your environment, whether you're pulling or pushing. So that being said, there's no reason why a keyboard would be enough to ever strengthen anyone unless they had degraded to such a point that they were basically trying to maintain or begin to have a normal function. In other words, when somebody is sedentary for an extended period of time and you start to get them to be able to do things, say you're in a coma or hospitalized, or back when they used to have those casts, start from the top and go all the way to the bottom, which is less common now. It takes a while for the proximal muscles to regenerate and come back alive. So then, anything you do will have a strengthening effect, but it's a plateau effect also. About 4 to 6 weeks later, that's it. You can't expect for the activity to have the same benefit in terms of what you're going to be able to do. And so that's when resistance has to come in. And resistance is one of those things, as I said before, too much and too little is the same exact problem. You will not notice whether the damage came from doing too much activity or whether it was too little activity. In terms of pathologies, you'll see the same kinds of things. So I guess I'm saying, if somebody is already, if you're doing rock climbing, which is one of my favorite ways to do therapeutic for the hands, if you hang for a certain period of time, has an interesting effect. It gives you a traction effect, as well as it gives you an increase, a spot-specific increase in strength in the tendons in particular.
This is not something I would recommend for someone who has a repetitive strain injury.
No, not if someone is in pain. If someone is in pain or has an injury that is already in process.
Yeah.
But I have utilized it to have a therapeutic benefit on people in the long run. And I mean, everything is incremental, and it depends on, there's a way to take the body weight off of the hands as well in a hanging position so that you're not actually having the full body weight. There's ways to make it so that you can incrementally increase the pressure on you. So again, to me, it's a creative use and your understanding of how much pressure a person needs, when and how in a range of motion. And this is art form. This is not something that's done willy-nilly, and there is no formula for individuals. If you have 5 people with the same exact thing, your application of these things is probably going to have to be different in each case.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I see it as being a very challenging thing.
And every person with repetitive strain injury has a different manifestation.
Okay.
Some people don't have any pain at all. That's rare. But some people have nerve issues. Some people have thoracic outlet syndrome, which is more with the blood flow. It's very complicated. And interestingly enough, because of the substitution injuries that you get, people wind up with many different injuries. They'll start out with a little bit of something, and then before you know it, they've got, it's not uncommon for people to have 24 injuries.
Yeah, I refer to that as layered pathologies.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to differentiate, well, what came first, second, third, what started this whole party going, But my approach is simple solutions to complicated problems, because in the understanding that you're affecting multiple mechanisms simultaneously. Because let's just isolate strength training again, because it's a familiar thing in some regards and totally unfamiliar in others. When you are strengthening, quote unquote, you're also having a blood flow change. You also have a vascular change. You also have, in the long run, you actually have a thickening of the bones. You actually have a density change in the muscles. You have all these things that happen as a result of doing a activity. And if you're doing what we call functional training, then you're involving a lot more muscle groups in that activity, something that's more relevant to life as opposed to trying to do an isolation exercise in particular, which I don't find that beneficial for a lot of reasons. Who's got the time to isolate each piece of your body and then later on train it to come back together and work as a whole? That has got to be one of the craziest doctrines in terms of training. That means you have to train twice. One, to learn how to move, and then you have to, actually 3 times, because now you have to bring all this together. You have to teach the pieces how to work together as a unit. So, what do you think about that? I know I'm giving you a lot. You got me rambling.
Yes. I think there's room for both.
Okay.
Sometimes I think it's useful to target. Sometimes people can't get the whole thing all at once. And that's where Feldenkrais is brilliant.
Yeah, I love Feldenkrais.
Yeah, because you really get the sense of integration, which is the feeling of being in one piece and every part of you doing its share of the job, which I love. But training someone to use a computer properly is a whole different ballgame
Okay.
than training an athlete. It's a completely different thing because so many people are very out of touch with their bodies until their body is screaming.
Very true.
And it starts with a whisper. The warning signs of repetitive strain injury are so subtle in the beginning. I like to say it's like a very good New York mugger, because you don't even know. It's true. You don't know until your wallet's halfway down the block or halfway across town that it's missing.
I'm sorry you've had that experience.
Well, but I've also I've learned I caught people. Say, what are you doing? Well, I'm not doing anything. Yes, you are. But anyway, it starts with something. How do you know you're losing strength? You wouldn't unless someone were testing your grip
I
strength.
see.
So it's when they're finally shifting their briefcase to the other hand.
I see.
Or they're holding the subway pole with their non-dominant hand. People start dropping things because they have a nerve injury that they're not aware of. And they're losing their fine touch, so they'll shatter every glass in the house and wonder what's going on. This is very strange. They'll do things like have problems buttoning buttons or putting their jewelry on. All of these things are very subtle signs that something is wrong.
That's not subtle to me, though. But
It's not subtle
but
to
maybe
you.
to some people, it's like when I was, wait a minute, I can't feel anything.
People ignore,
Yes.
dismiss.
This is very true.
They try to fix it on
Most
the
of them.
outside. They'll go to their acupuncturist, they'll go to their chiropractor, they'll go to their massage therapist. They'll do everything before they'll see a doctor, and then when they finally get to the doctor, as likely as not, will write a prescription for a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, which masks the pain. So they're keeping doing what has given them the injury because they can't feel pain, making everything worse, in addition to what could be going on in their stomach. You know, it's not good for your...
I hear you loud and clear.
Or they will give them splints.
Yes,
which
mobilization is.
Immobilization.
Yeah, immobilization. It's over with then.
It leads to lack of fluid return,
Mm-hmm.
weakening and atrophy of the tissues. And then if they're trying to work at the computer with the splint on, they're working against the splint. So that also can make things considerably worse. So the doctors of America really need to be educated. One doctor told me that they get 4 hours on the upper extremity in medical school. And this is the leading occupational injury. And the doctors have 4 hours. They don't understand. And,
Right.
you know,
Well, they get they get 1 hour nutrition. I mean, when you said acupuncturists and massage therapists, I think that they're more likely to catch that than others. Because especially if you're talking about a Chinese medicine practitioner who has a lot more tools at their disposal.
I'm
Good
not
massage therapists.
dissing acupuncturists. They
Sure.
can be very helpful. It can be very helpful with pain.
No, I'm talking about actually catching that there is something wrong.
Something wrong, yes.
And actually being able to say, hey, this is what caused that problem. Now, this again is the issue now in 2014 because there is such a disparity between practitioners. If you had said this to me 30 years ago, then I would have said to you a whole different conversation in terms of the level of practitioners. Because you have people at that time, 30 years ago, to become a Chinese medicine doctor was a 20-year plan.
Yes.
Now it's a 4-year plan, it's a 2-year plan. It's a totally
It's a
different
weekend
situation.
Online certification.
Yes, totally different situation in terms of that. And as far as massage therapists are concerned, in New York State, we have a primary institute that you have to go to. And I actually would say that I think they probably have one of the more exhaustive curriculum that they have to go through before they get that nod. But then there are a whole host of other people who do Traeger and do Shiatsu and do other forms. And so it's really hard to quantify who knows what. Because if you apprentice with a really, really, really good teacher and you have aptitude, then you're going to be able to do these things.
what we need is a number of things. We need an awareness campaign to raise the awareness. Most people have no idea that something could go wrong with their hands that would end their career and their ability
That's true.
to wash their hair, to take care of their kids, and their ability to cook. So we need to raise the consciousness. And then we need to take a really good look at how we're working today. Look at the jobs that we're doing, that we're asking people to do for so many hours a day, and look at the toll that that job is taking on the body.
Mm-hmm.
We need to discuss these things. We need to have a forum where we can improve things. And
Well, it's interesting because I know, for instance, I did a workshop for technologists. I'm going to shout out to BetaWorks right now. Shout out to BetaWorks. And I have to say, they have an open floor plan and they have a totally different work ethic. And now there's a lot of technology companies that basically the employee, the person who's working there, is really a lot more responsible in terms of what they, how they work, how long they work, when they work, where they work from. A lot of the things I saw there were very ergonomic. You had the desk to rise and fall. You could take breaks as you needed it. So I think that the market forces, I know that the market forces are dictating a lot of what we see in the workplace. It's like a top-down pressure, right? You have to be in business at a certain level, or you will not be there anymore. And so, the families that are dependent on it, the people who are dependent on it, the whole structure itself would collapse. And so I think the challenge would be, how does one work within that need and still take care for the individuals that are really, the most important part of this process? Because obviously if you don't have healthy people working, you can't have a healthy company. You can't have a company. And then you have to have attrition. You have to have, maybe you lose some of your best people because they can no longer
that's what happens.
function.
The hardest workers get injured first very often. The biggest
Right.
producers are the ones that get the most serious injuries because they don't stop. They have this work ethic and they won't take breaks and they keep going.
It's a passion. I mean, how do you, it's just as an artist and as an entrepreneur, there's many times when I'm going to finish this project. I'm finishing this project tonight. And so I finished that project that night.
That's your choice.
Right.
When it becomes part of your job, where the expectation is.
Well, it
And
is
you're gonna
my
stay.
job. I mean,
You're your own boss.
yeah, but that's my point. You're not your own boss in terms of you cannot remove the element of what is necessary to stay in business.
Yeah.
So theoretically, I could just not work at all or do less, but then my product wouldn't reach the level in which I needed to stay competitive in the workplace.
We have to balance our need for sustenance and sustainability with human health. Whenever the question arises, this was one of the first questions I asked myself when I was writing my book.
Okay.
Because people were constantly trying to get me to compromise and saying, Deborah, don't talk about breaks, because we're seeing our productivity go down.
That's not true.
We'll have that discussion someday,
Yeah.
because I agree with you. It's not true. It's
that-
not true, but people were getting very nervous. Or, what do you mean I'm going to buy a new chair or get a sit-stand workstation? That costs money. Well, if you compare, $1,500 to upgrade your workstation with $150,000
That's right.
to take care of a surgery or a lost employee or the getting someone else up to speed, or you got to hire 5 people to do this guy's job.
Sure.
It doesn't, and not to mention the human cost. So I asked myself this question, and I always answer, I draw the line at human health. If it's bad for your health, Emory, I am not going to recommend it for you.
Thank you, Deborah. Say that again, please, one more time with the camera.
If it's not good for your health, I am not going to recommend it for you.
And I said, thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Emory. It's been nice talking
I
to you.
really appreciate that, you advocating on my behalf. And it's been a pleasure, and it's very enlightening. And it's very complex what you're talking about.
Extremely.
I don't pretend to know what the solutions are, but I definitely believe that trying to take care of yourself better and incorporating as much of this intelligence into your life, the better.
You may not have the solutions, Emory, but you were asking a lot of the right questions and making a lot of the good observations. And this is important. We need education. And we also need to take a good look at our values. Is it more important for us to be productive? Or is it more important to take care of the instrument that's getting you through daily life? That's what I always ask my clients. What could possibly be more important than taking care of the instrument that's getting you through life?
Yeah, not to be a dead horse, but I think the other side of that argument is that you were in a capitalist society where the structure of it, if you're not making a certain amount of resource, then you will definitely not have the ability to take care of yourself.
Then, why don't we find safer ways to work and use safer tools and focus on that? Because people don't want to be unemployed.
No, and they don't want to be hurt.
Work,
of course.
And they don't want to be hurt.
Of course.
So let's look at the tools that we're using every day and the way that we're using these tools and improve that. I'm not expecting us not to be productive.
Sure.
I just question that people who are designing these tools that are being forced on the entire populace are not being designed with the human movement in mind. And I can prove this to you in another segment.
Okay, well, I look forward to coming back then.
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.